Hey guys, it's Ping. Thanks for clicking on to Vital MX. We've got an interesting project today. I got called by my buddy Robert Naughton here. Everybody knows him as Fig. Those who raced or were into racing in the 80s might recognize the name. Fellow Arizonan, and I was actually just a little mini Grom when you were a pro, but you finished fourth in what, 86?
Yep, fourth in 86.
And second overall in the 125
Second
Supercross Championship in 87.
So we have in common.
Yeah, second. Yes. You wanted to take a bike. This is a 22 Husqvarna 501 FE, and you wanted to turn it into more of a motocross bike, be able to go to the track, still run some off-road stuff. And you pitched me this idea. I thought you were a little nuts. Tell me what you did to this thing.
Well, what really happened is I started doing vintage racing, and I'm really enjoying riding the YZ490 and the KX500, and I've got a CZ400, and just, you know, open bikes ruled in the day, and they're kind of gone. I was always a fan of the Red Husky, and when men raced 500s in motocross. So I rode a KTM 500, and I'm like, God, the torque is amazing. So I called up Jeremy at AEO, and they didn't have any of these things, and he found me one. And you know, the guys at AEO are just a good group of dudes. So he sold me the motorcycle, and then I was just gonna do kind of an off-road works and moto build. And then as it kind of morphed and I talked to you, I decided, no, I'm gonna build a full-on motocrosser. As you can see in the graphics, it says FC 501. That doesn't exist. So I was basically building my own motocross 500, and I'm pretty stoked with the way it turned out.
So tell me what you did. You got some good suspension on here. This is the WP cone valve fork, the latest iteration with the track shock. And this has got, you know, for those who are familiar, the cone valve used to have air adjusters in the top and the bottom. They've gone away from that bottom. It's a simpler system now. The track shock, you can see the high and low speed compression on compression, high and low speed. There's also a rebound, high and low speed. So lots of adjustment, and I think there's 45 clicks is the range. So because that needle is just dialed to a finer point in there, you get a lot more precision. You know, maybe 5 clicks on this would be 1 click on the standard stuff. So it gives you a really wide range to fine tune it. So great suspension. You got the x-trig clamps, W wheel set, Talon hub.
So I called up my buddy John Anderson. Actually, he connected me to his son Cole, and I wanted a cool set of moto wheels. Since it was going to be an off-road bike, though, I originally went 2118 aluminum hubs, and then when we started getting disco with this build, I had them build me a set of 2119 with the carbon hubs, because if you're gonna go broke, go big. Back up to the suspension. In my pro days, I rode really stock motorcycles in Supercross and in my works career, and you know, I just never had the cool stuff. So now I'm at a point in my life where I can do what I want, buy the parts I want. I bought every part on this motorcycle except the brake tip and the rear sprocket and chain. And I went with the things that if I was gonna be an up and coming pro, what would I want on my motorcycle? And so that's what I did. Of course, I wouldn't have started with a 501, but everybody does a 250, 350, 450 build. I like open class bikes. So that's really the backstory. I liked red and white Huskies. You know, Huskies with Malcolm Smith and those guys were rad. So I did a red and white black theme, and basically built the bike I would want if I was going racing pro.
So it's Sherby's plastic, ODI bars and grips, super sprockets, chain and sprocket. Factory Effects did all the graphics, looks great.
And this is off the graphics builder, and I had done a similar set on a previous Husky, and I just liked the way it looked, so I just went back to that builder and kind of did this.
Well, it's sharp, and you and I were looking back and forth at some old Husqvarna 500s from the time when they were red, or had some red and white in them, and it is a nice little tie-in. I appreciated that. So I'll give you my opinion on this thing on the track, because I was a little nervous taking off, you know, 500s. It's you can definitely right away tell that it's very torquey, it wants to lug, doesn't want to over rev. We had the gearing off initially. We kind of took a guess on gearing, and we ended up going down from a 52 to a 50, and we're probably gonna end up at a 48 when it's all said and done. Really fun power, because it's sort of mapped and dialed and set up. It's a 6-speed tranny, obviously, so you have, I'm in third a lot through any kind of sweeping turn with any speed, and the way that the power rolls on is just very mellow. And it kind of makes me wonder, you know, like maybe I think we're setting our motocross bikes up a little too aggressively, because that smooth roll on, man, if there was a turn where, you know, the rut kind of broke out and it was a slick exit of the turn, you could just keep dialing on the power and control it so easily with the throttle. Where on a motocross version, you know, it's just a little too aggressive and it's gonna step out on you. This thing was very tractable and controllable. But if you needed some balls, you just twisted the throttle, and I mean, I could roll up to that finish line tabletop and just go, ah, and no problem. I go as far as I want to go. And the suspension held up great, a little bit firm for me. You kind of said the same thing. It feels a little firm.
Which is interesting because this fork is built for the FE model, so it's supposed to be the off-road setting. And yeah, we're getting old, man, and a little cushier suspension helps.
Well, and this was another thing we wanted to sort of see in this build was when you order this WP cone valve and track shock, how does it come? And basically, it has to be an authorized dealer that you buy it from if you're buying a new set, and they will find out from you, okay, what do you weigh? What type of riding do you do? What skill level are you? And they have a spec chart that they'll put in a setting that fits what you're after. So to your point, they got your weight, they got your skill level. You kind of were saying more off-road, or you wanted it to be a little above.
Off-road GP works.
Because it's for this model, the spec chart gave them an off-road setting. Sure. But so interesting that it is still pretty firm. And but we got a lot of room, obviously, to adjust on both ends. And I'm sure you'll get, the thing though is, even though it's firm, very stable. Like coming down the hills here, it starts, you know, on a spike that's not suspended well. It'll start bucking or kind of bouncing around and moving. This thing is straight as an arrow. Obviously I would like it to be a little more plush in some of the small stuff, but very stable. I never worried about it getting loose on me or stepping out from under me, which to me is the most important thing.
So one of the things you asked me when I talked to you about this build, you said, who did the suspension? And I said, I haven't had anybody do it yet. It's brand new, it hasn't been ridden. I'd like us to ride it and see what $6,500 suspension feels like off the shelf, because why should you have to spend that kind of money and then go spend several or another $1,000 or whatever. So that was the reason I left it alone. And maybe we could tweak it, maybe we can make it a little bit better, but I really feel like I can take what I have and really play with the clickers and the air pressure and get what I want. And that's the reason I went with the air fork. A lot of guys don't like the air fork, but I want this to be a moto bike and a GP works type bike. And I find for me, if it's a fast track, I can run more air in the front, kind of chopper it out and slacken the head angle. Or if it's a tight course, I can lower it a little bit. So that's why I went with the air fork. A lot of guys don't like the air fork. For me, it works.
I would tell you this, I think there's no question the componentry is better in this suspension. You have more options for tuning, so you can fine tune it better. So I would say just this out of the box versus stock out of the box, definitely better.
Oh, absolutely. And where I'm really looking forward to taking, I told you, is up and do the Mammoth Motocross. I haven't done that race in probably 25 years, so I think a big open class bike up that elevation would be cool. Couple other things we didn't talk about, and I saw it on your show, is the FCP titanium engine mounts and bolts. The 501 actually is notorious for breaking the right side stock head stay, so I really felt like I needed to go with that. And then with the ECU, there's a guy I had seen online, I don't know him, I went to his website and bought his stuff at retail, and that's Takamoto Co. Mike there, go to his website or look him up, but he loves to help people out with their dirt bikes. He feels like, I can't be your therapist, but I can be your dirt bike's therapist. So if a guy's bike's broken or doesn't run right, they don't run right. So one of the things I like about Mike is he loves dirt bikes. That's why we're all here. And he really wants to help people make their bike better. So I do think we can tweak the tuning a little bit. I think Mike did a great job with the Get ECU is what this thing has. And you know, so it's just top-notch stuff. And then one other thing that I didn't know if you noticed, but this brake pedal down here is made by Clean Speed. And one of the problems I have with KTMs is the lever tends to bend inward and then my foot misses the pad. Well, this guy, I didn't even know him, ends up at my house with another buddy with a broken foot. I give him my boot because we all have a boot we share. And I got talking about that. He's like, I make a wider tip. So he sent me that tip, just a tip. And then I learned he had a brake pedal. So I actually went to his website and bought the brake pedal. So just a few other little tidbits that I threw on the bike. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but this is a roller bearing throttle from ODI.
Super nice.
I really couldn't tell much difference, but all the ODI controls and felt good for me. Your bar bend, and then I wanted to try the roller bearing throttle. So that's really about it.
It's also got the FCP titanium foot peg pins, which are really cool, super lightweight. And then it's got the 53-33 Dunlop combination that I like. I wanted to ask you what you thought of that front, because you hadn't ridden with it before.
I hadn't ridden it. I mean, I was a Maxxis guy for my whole mountain bike and truck racing career. Use their motorcycle tires when nobody should use their motorcycle tires. So it seems like they've come a long way. But over the years, since KTMs and Huskies come with Dunlops, I've kind of for me, the Dunlop AT81 comes on the bike, so that's what I'm used to. So rear tire had amazing straight line traction, and the front, I'm still a little funky on the forks and the setup and the bars, and I really didn't spend a lot of laps. I mean, it didn't do anything weird on me, so I look forward to getting back to Arizona on tracks I'm more familiar with. Sure. and trying out the tire setup that you love.
Well, at the end of the day, also FMF exhaust, we should mention that, some IMS pegs. There's a lot of little pieces on here that finish it off nice, but this was a really unique build for me, or riding it. I didn't build it obviously, but because we've never done something like this before, and to have that big of an engine and a motocross setup was fun. And it was like, you could definitely tell it's a big bore. Because when you come out of a turn and grab a gear or two and just lay into it, this thing's moving.
Well, and the cool thing about 500s, which is why I want another one, and when you were coming up the road and just rolling the throttle on, the front end just comes up. And I mean, a 450 will do that too, but it's just a different vibe. And the 500 class is kind of a dinosaur, but it's kind of cool to take an oddball sized motorcycle and do an oddball build with it, and that's what we did here. And I don't know, I'm gonna have some fun with it.
Well, thanks so much for letting us ride it, man. This was a labor of love for you, you can tell, and you did an awesome job. It's a beautiful bike.
Yeah, thanks, man.
So thanks. Hey, thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned, lots of builds coming. See you on the next one.